Hi everyone. So let's keep going now with topic 2, lecture 3, part 2, I think. Yeah. All right. So what we're going to look at now are acids, bases, pH and buffers and how that relates to nursing or medicine. So let's have a look and see what is an acid. Okay, so an acid is something that when you put it in water, it breaks apart or it separates. So, I'm just going to move my screen a little bit. Here we go. So, an acid is something that when you put into solution, it separates. So if I have this particular molecule here, as you can see, this is hydrogen chloride. If I add that into my beaker with water, what happens is that it breaks apart. Okay, so this hydrogen chloride, when I put it in water, it breaks apart. Now let's have a look at the pieces. Can you see here that when I've broken it apart, the pieces are hydrogen and chloride, okay? So this molecule here, when I added in the water, it broke apart into 2 pieces. So when one of those pieces is a hydrogen, that makes that molecule an acid. Okay, let's have a look at bases. All right, let's have a look at bases. So here we go. Here is my molecule. Can you see this molecule? This molecule is sodium hydroxide. Okay, now let's pop it into water. When I do that, it also splits up. Okay, so it breaks apart. Now let's have a look at the pieces. We've got sodium and hydroxide. They are the 2 pieces. When a molecule breaks up into pieces, when you put it in water, and one of those pieces is a hydroxide, then it's called a base. Simple. Okay, let's have a look at salts. Again, here is my molecule. This molecule is sodium chloride, right? So let's have a look. We pop it into the water, and what do you think is going to break into? Well, sodium chloride breaks up into sodium and chloride ions. So you can add that to your picture down here. So why is a salt a salt? Because a salt is defined as something that separates in water that can release a cation or an anion that are not hydrogen or hydroxide. Okay, so salts are a little bit more complicated. So I want you to complete your drawing here and add your translation, like I just said, into that section. Okay, so now that we know what an acid is and what a base is, now we can get to learn about what is a strong acid and what is a strong base. So, here we go. Here are my acid molecules. This is again hydrogen chloride. Now let's put them in to our water, our beaker with our water in it. And that one's being naughty. There you go, they're in our water beaker. What's happened? Can you see that I've put 3 molecules of acid into water, and 1, 2, 3 of them have broken apart, correct? All of them have broken apart. When that happens, that means it's a strong acid. When every single one of these breaks apart, it's a strong acid. The same applies for a strong base. Here is my base, sodium hydroxide. Let's put them all in. Here we go, chuck them all in there, and let's see what happens. All three of them have broken apart. If all of them have broken apart, that means it's a strong base. Now, what is a weak base then? What is a weak acid then? Let's have a look. Here we go. What do we have here? Another acid. Let's put this one into our beaker with water and to see what happens. All right, let's see what happens. How many of them have actually broken up? Only one. So that is what a weak acid is. A weak acid means that not every single acid molecule is going to break apart when you put it into water. Only some of them do. Okay? And also some of them break apart and then rejoin, and break apart and rejoin. So when that happens, that's called a reversible reaction. Let's have a look at a weak base. So here we go. Chuck them into our water. And let's see what happens. Let's see how many of them have broken apart. Only 1, 2 have broken apart, and 1 hasn't broken apart. So the same thing happens as a base. Okay? If the molecule, if all of them break apart and release hydroxides, it's called a strong base. If only some of them come apart, then it's called a weak base. Again, this is reversible. So the hydroxide can rejoin with sodium, or it can pop off again. Rejoin or pop off. See? Easy. All right, so now that we've done acid, bases, strong and weak, now what we can do is try and get our head around the pH scale. I know it's very difficult, but hopefully I've made some drawings for you that will help you understand. Fingers crossed. First thing I want you to think about here, I just want you to think about the pattern that I've got on my screen. Okay? I've got the pH scale here. Actually, I might just do this in this mode. There. Here I have my pH scale. All right? pH scale from 0 to 14. I want you to have a look at the pattern of the red dots. What is happening? What can we say about it? Pause the video and say a statement. Well, the pattern is that you have lots and lots and lots of hydrogen ions at 0, and they keep getting less and less and less and less and less and less when you get to 14. Hopefully that's the same pattern that you said out loud to your mum or to your sister or to your cat. I suggest teaching it to your cat. Let's have a look at this pattern. So this time we're going to be looking at hydroxide ions. Okay? Let's have a look at the numbers here. From 0 to 14. What is the pattern that you can see there? Pause the video and tell it to your cat. So, the pattern is that at a pH of 0, there's only one hydroxide ion, and When you get to 14, there's lots and lots and lots of them. That's the pattern. Okay. All right. So now what I want you to think about, all I've done here is counted the circles in each row, and I've got both hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions side by side. Okay? What can you see here? What's the pattern? What can you tell me about this picture? Well, we can see that hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions, the concentration runs in reverse, right? So up here we have 15, and down here we have 1. Up here we have 1, and down here we have 15. So they are in reverse of each other. And they only kind of match when you get to this, which is pH of 7. Okay? Otherwise, they're in reverse. Okay. Now let's have a look at the ratio, okay? Let's have a look at the ratio of hydrogen ions to hydroxide ions. At a pH of 0, we have more hydroxide ions than we do, a pH of 0, we have more hydrogen ions than we do hydroxide, 15 to 1. And can you see the ratio, the pattern? At a pH of 4, we have 11 to 5. At a pH of 7, it's 1 to 1. And at the bottom here, we have 1 hydroxide ion for every 15. 1 hydrogen ion for every 15 hydroxide ions. Okay, so that is the ratio. So that's what I want you to understand. The whole point of me going through all those pictures is for you to understand that up the top here, so that the pH scale, the numbers essentially represent the ratio of hydrogen to hydroxide ions, like we did in the table. Okay, that's what I want you to understand. And then you look at the numbers here and you go, oh my God, what are those numbers? I don't understand what they even are. Well, for your purposes, I just want you to understand the ratio concept that I just explained then for you. These numbers are derived, if you really want to know, using negative logarithms. Now, if you want me to teach you that, I'm more than happy to do it, but I just don't think it's kind of necessary at the moment, but I'm more than happy to teach it to you if you want to know. All those numbers are, okay, these numbers come out, mathematically speaking, by calculating the number of hydrogen ions in the molar solution, okay? And they want to do that as a negative log. I wouldn't bother about it if I were you. I think it's more important for you to understand this concept here, that the pH scale is a ratio scale. And at 0, you've got lots and lots of hydrogen ions and not many hydroxide. At 7, pH of 7, you've got 1 to 1. And pH of 14, you've got lots of hydroxides and very, very few hydrogen. And that is the most important concept, I think, for you guys at this point. Okay, so if we look at what the values are called, pH values of -7 are called acidic, so acids, and pH of 7 is neutral because remember they match, the ratio is the same, and then pH of above 7 are called basic. Okay, see, yeah, so these are the different things. Look at that, all egg is a pH of 8, that's nice. Look at your stomach. Your stomach has a very acidic pH. Look at that. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, So another thing that we need to kind of think about are buffers. Now, buffers are a little bit difficult to explain, but I've done my best with my drawing here, so bear with me. Okay, so we have, this is my solution here, and as you can see, I have it's just a schematic, okay? It's conceptual, all right? Let's pretend I've got 3 buffer molecules and 4 hydrogen ions, and my pH is 5. Let's just pretend as a hypothetical schematic representation. Here is my acid molecule, and I'm going to pop it into here. Now, what do acids do? Acids break apart and let go of a hydrogen. Isn't that right? Yep, so let me just grab that guy there, because that's what acids do. They break apart and release their hydrogens. That's what makes them an acid. Now instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4 hydrogen ions, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that going to change my pH, or is my pH of my solution going to stay the same? It's going to change it. Remember, it's going to change it because all of a sudden I have more hydrogen ions. Let's have a look at our pH scale. More hydrogen ions means lower pH. Okay? So it's going to change it. So what a buffer does, and why they're so important, is buffers stop your pH from changing. So when I grab this little molecule here, it's my little acid, and I put him into my water here, and because he's an acid, he's going to break apart. So I just grab him here. Now instead of letting this guy float around, changing my pH, guess what? The buffer holds on to him. The buffer grabs hold of that hydrogen and says, hey, you are not going to be floating around and changing the pH here, buddy. So I'm going to grab you and I'm not going to let you go. Okay? So now in this instance, I'll just move my little H's. In this instance, is my pH going to change or stay the same? It's going to stay the same because the buffer is holding on to that little pesky hydrogen that was going to float around and change our pH. I hope that makes sense to you. I hope it does. Here we go. So why is this important? Well, our body's pH needs to be very, very well controlled, and it has to be within a very narrow range, homeostatic range. If we go on either side of those, it's not good. Not good. So you will learn about this a little bit more when you get to your other nursing subjects. But what can happen to someone if you have, it's called acidosis, okay? You are too acidic. Your body fluids are too acidic, have too many hydrogen ions. Or you can be too basic. That's a problem because our pH needs to be just right, or else our cells are not going to be happy. Now, we have mechanisms in place that help us when our pH is unbalanced, okay? And the kidneys are the lungs, are the ones that help us out in that regard. The kidneys take part of the base part, so the alkaline part, the base part, and the lungs take care of the acid part, okay? You will learn a lot more about this later on when you do your other nursing subjects. Just be mindful of these key points. All done. Acid-base pH.